everyone, and welcome to God's Plan, Your Part, a podcast where our goal is to read the entire Bible in a year, seeking to understand God's plan of redemption while discovering daily and practically your part in it.
Today you'll see exactly why Daniel is called the revelation of the Old Testament. There are so many things in Daniel 10 to 12 that feel very much like the book of Revelation. There's a lot of battles, there's a lot of rulers, there are angels fighting in spiritual realms while there are kings fighting in physical realms. There are times and spans and periods of times. There are symbolic periods of times. There are really powerful forces for good. There are really powerful forces for evil. And it is really easy to get caught up in the story of the vision. Daniel chapter 10 to 12 is one vision. And instead of breaking down every little bit and piece, I just don't feel like I understand it enough to break down every bit and piece. What I will tell you is that it appears very much like Daniel 10 to 12 tracks very similarly to exactly what happened in human history following the king of the Medes. So Daniel is receiving this vision during the time of Darius. This is also during the time when a lot of folks who were carried into exile were allowed to return to Jerusalem. So we've been kind of walking through this period of time where the Babylonians defeated Judah and destroyed Jerusalem. The people were carried into exile. Now we're starting to see that the people are allowed to return to Jerusalem. And following that time kind of erupts another crazy time in ancient history where the Medes and the Persians are overthrown by the Greeks. The Greeks kind of split their empire into pieces. There's 4 really powerful rulers. They kind of fight among themselves. Eventually, the Romans arise and fight off all of those rulers. And in Daniel 10 to 12, it appears like we take kind of this leap from the Roman Empire to the end times, the end of days, the very end. And we see a very powerful ruler for wickedness fighting against powerful forces for good. We see the necessity for the saints to persevere. It does seem like there is going to be a period of time where it is difficult to be a believer. It's difficult to be somebody who is faithful and righteous before God. But we also see that God prevails in the end, and that those who were faithful to God are rewarded for their faithfulness. So if there's any theme that is present in Daniel, it is that God is sovereign over all things. God is greater than all things. God is kind of maneuvering all these periods in human history, and they're becoming true. I think a kind of a secondary extra credit thing just to walk away with from the book of Daniel is that we know that the book of Daniel was written before all of these events transpired. So for Daniel to write down things that seem to track almost exactly with what happened in the events of human history, and for Daniel to allude to them several times through visions and through messages and just accounts that he's written down, it's pretty incredible. This is another one of those times where a prophetic book is just stamping how important it is to trust the Bible, because the Bible is fiercely reliable. The Word of God seems to be exactly what happens. And so we have these nations that rise and fall. We can track pretty closely with actual human events. And the one thing that we don't know yet is how it all ends. And so that's why the end of Daniel is so similar to Revelation. Actually, it looks like John, the author of Revelation, was taking some of the imagery that he's writing about from these final chapters in Daniel. So it's the same kind of thing. It's easy to get in the weeds of these visions. Lots of people like to do that. I do not enjoy doing that, to be honest. If you want to do a deep dive into what these visions mean and who these nations are and who these kingdoms are, you can do that. The internet is a great place to find out lots of stuff, though it's not always super reliable. If you want to do a deep dive and not be worried about finding crazy resources, I would recommend Logos Bible Software. They kind of have a lot of really reliable sources that you could read about all this stuff, and you can do a deep dive on who these rulers are and what these kingdoms are. I think the big takeaway that I want to leave with you as we finish up the book of Daniel There are so many instances in these visions and stories in the book of Daniel where we are encouraged to not lose faith, to hope in God, to trust in God, and to stand righteous before God even when it's difficult. And so I think, for me anyway, rather than get caught up in what these visions mean, it's encouraging for me to kind of keep that high level view of what's going on and see it as, okay, persevere in righteousness. Trust God. Don't be afraid of all these shifting circumstances, these shifting kingdoms. Like, that's not just an ancient history thing. Even today, power shifts and moves in pretty radical ways, in pretty radical fashions. And the news people, they love to make you think about that all the time. So don't be distracted by that stuff. Like, definitely be aware, but don't be distracted, and keep your eyes on Jesus, because Jesus is not going to change. Jesus is not going to go away. Jesus is not going to disappoint you. Jesus is not going to leave you without protection and hope and perseverance. So hope in God, continue to be righteous before God, continue to confess your sin before Him and cling to Him. Keep your eyes on Him, because that is what the book of Daniel encourages us to do. So we are wrapping up Daniel today. Tomorrow we will be jumping into Ezra. I hope you enjoyed the book of Daniel. After going through Ezekiel, it seems like we went through Daniel pretty quickly, but there's a lot packed in there. So I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you want to do a deep dive on any of these chapters, you can definitely do that. You can figure out who all these guys are, and you can probably watch tons of videos about who all these guys are. I just want to encourage you to be righteous before God. Don't lose hope. Keep to the faith. Even if everything in the world seems like it's going crazy, God is in control, and God is going to look out for us and care for us when we are faithful to Him. So we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll be jumping into Ezra. We'll see you then.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.